Oh, God. Oh, no. Oh, no. His Mossad trip. Uh-oh. One sec.
So I was wrong about Israel. And, you know, when I'm wrong about something, I make a video about it. You know, I am not a conservative, but I am a military and intelligence contributor for Newsmax, this American conservative cable news channel. And I do it because conservatives need to know about the technical aspects of Iranian missiles as well. Good intelligence is politically neutral, and all of our leaders deserve good intelligence assessments. Newsmax sent me to Israel to do stories about the 2024 Hezbollah attacks on a children's soccer game and to interview the commander of Hatzarim Air Base, whose planes struck Iran during Operation Rising Lion. Now, while Carl Higbee was able to get a little closer to the action in Gaza than I was, I still had a chance to visit some sites and talk to some Israelis, and this is where I realized that I was wrong. You know, my family is from Lisburn, Northern Ireland. We are Ulstermen, Protestants. So I always used to just view the Palestinians as sort of like pissed off Iraqis. Like if Israel only gave them home rule and opportunity, they would drop the rifle, pick up a broom, and start making their country a paradise. Often I've said that I'm the most pro-Palestinian dude on YouTube because I held the same view as General Petraeus, which was that Israel should create a Sons of Palestine, which is similar to the Sons of Iraq. In Iraq, we created this program, and it was called Sons of Iraq, or the Awakening Movement, where we gave moderate Iraqis a rifle, a uniform, a 2-week course, and said, go take back your country from those Iranian extremists who want to tear it apart. So if we only gave moderate Palestinians weapons, a little bit of training, and pointed them at Hamas, they would take back their country from evil. And you know, I asked this question to a government official who was with the Knesset, which is kind of like Israeli's legislature, and he laughed at me. And he showed me a wooden wall map found in a kindergarten in Gaza, which showed Israel as one nation, but all of the cities were in Arabic. They had Arabic names. But I also saw body camera footage of a raid in a school in Gaza. It showed a science lab, and there are pictures of like the circulatory system and posters and stuff. And then when you went 30 meters away to another room, there was a weapons depot. And we're not talking about like a gun safe where the school resource officer might keep a rifle, which now that I think of it is probably just an American thing. But what we're talking about, like there were crates of weapons and mortars and ammunition in the room of this school. They also had plastic and wooden AK-47 rifles that I assume were there for children to practice with. And that being said, the big difference between the Palestinians and the Iraqis is that the school children of Iraq were not taught from birth to come over to America and kill every single American. So a Sons of Palestine organization just wouldn't work, mainly because as soon as they were done wiping out Hamas, they would take all that tactical knowledge and march right back into Israel. Now, while I was in Israel, I talked with a lot of people, many of whom were fans, and they all wanted to give me their opinion. There were a lot of opinions. And these people, I met them on the street. They weren't arranged for me to meet. And, you know, they actually didn't really hate the Palestinians. In fact, I visited a collective farm called Kibbutz Nahal Oz. And this farm was right on the border with Gaza. And they even had Palestinians who were working there, and they would cross the border every day and work in the fields. This was until October 7th. I talked with this one dude who owned a construction company. He used to employ Palestinian workers. They would come in the morning, they would do their work, and they would leave in the evening. And when the borders closed after October 7th, and with so many reservists getting called up, this dude who owned the construction company couldn't find any workers. He went out of business. But his business was built working side by side with Palestinians. And the funny thing is that every Israeli I spoke with thought they were doing the right thing. They thought that if they gave Palestinians guest worker status and money and worked with them side by side, they would teach their kids, hey, we can all live together. But on October 7th, many of the terrorists who crossed the border did so with maps in their pocket. And those maps were made by Palestinian workers who worked on the kibbutz. Maps that had been made by the guest workers. I don't know how to fix that. I just don't. You know, one refrain that I hear a lot is that the Israelis got what they deserve. They're occupiers. The Palestinians had every right to resist by any means necessary because...
Hold on. Did he show an article for that? My understanding is that this had never been proven, that there was no conclusive link saying that when these people came in, the maps were the same ones made by the workers. Does anybody know? Has there been a story written on that links that or that claims to link that? Because I thought that even the IDF, even Israel, hadn't made that statement conclusively.
So with maps in their pocket, and those maps were made by Palestinian workers who worked on the kibbutz, maps that had been made by the guest workers. I don't know how to fix that. I just don't.
What the fuck did the media tour, right? He went with fucking with Newsmax.
You know, one refrain that I hear a lot is that the Israelis got what they deserve. They're occupiers. The Palestinians had every right to resist by any means necessary because they deserve their own state. They deserve to take back their state from the Israelis. You know, back on October 7th, 2023, I was in a hotel in North Carolina and I woke up to the news about the attacks. And I made a video in the hotel talking about the Israeli War of Independence. And I talked about how essentially the Palestinians had their own state. It kind of looked like this. This is the original United Nations map for partitioning Palestine. The yellow areas are Palestinian, the blue areas are Israeli. Incidentally,
Shin Bet debunks idea the Gazan workers spot on mass for Hamas prayer October 7th. The press workforce is not concerted effort. Intelligence targets for months. Some media outlets claim laborers aided the terrorists. I never saw. I didn't think that link ever existed. Shin Bet has investigated some 3,000 Gazans who had permits to work in Israel to assess if they provided the terror group with information about the communities it was planning on attacking, and has concluded that no such concerted effort was made. They didn't completely rule out the possibility that some individual laborers had cooperated with the terror group. I don't even know if you would need them. I don't even know if you need the maps. Can't you just can you not look at Google Maps? It's not like it's all secret. It's just a kibbutz. It's not like anything.
the UN gave the Palestinians most of the farmland, even though Israel technically got a bigger portion, but it was mainly desert. The map was adapted on November 29th, 1947, with Jerusalem and Bethlehem as sort of like internationally administered zones. The plan was reluctantly accepted by Jewish leaders, but rejected by the Arab Higher Committee, who represented the Palestinians because they wanted more land since they had more people. Technically, they wanted all of it. Now, at the time, the Jews in Europe had been liberated, but not totally freed. There was about 850,000 people living in displaced persons camps.
Well, hi, what's up, buddy?
Hello?
Hello.
I got to debate you, Steve.
What
Can
are we
you hear me?
On what? No, I'm not doing it.
The
Oh.
Epstein stuff.
What about it?
Okay. I just want to know, where are you coming from in it? You think it's not fishy at all and he just 100% didn't kill himself? There's 0% chance, or where are you at?
How engaged am I right now? Is this real or is this memes?
I'm curious because I probably think that more. Hold on.
I think the chances of there being some nefarious activity at play are less than 10%. The chances that some external person actually killed him is like less than 0.01%. I think that the best
0.01.
Yeah, the best type of explanation maybe is that people were pressured to let him kill himself, maybe. But the issue is there's literally no evidence of that whatsoever, anywhere at all. And the official story just makes sense in every conceivable way. So it's hard to, yeah.
Do you find it fishy that there's literally 0 cameras that actually show the whole fucking way up, and all of them just quote unquote kind of coincidentally aren't working or anything like that?
Well, I mean but a lot of cameras weren't working for a little bit. But I mean, is it fishy? I mean, I guess maybe, but not.
I'm not on the Epstein 100% killed himself. There's no other explanation train. I'm more on this is one of the weird conspiracy theories that I could actually see of it kind of coming out that okay, yeah, they let him kill himself in the cell. I don't know. I've been watching the Voidzilla videos, and I heard that you watched them as well.
Yeah, I know he buys into it, but the issue is
super into it. Yeah,
that there's just 0 positive evidence at all. There's just a bunch of there's a couple of isn't it kind of weird thing.
Mm-hmm.
but there's no evidence
I kind of
whatsoever of
agree that
any
there's
external
no
person.
evidence.
Also, the 3 other people that were like in his cell block, nobody heard or saw anything.
Yeah, one of the new things that I guess I learned was like, I guess both of the fucking people who were on watch got like reprimanded or got charged with something.
I don't know if they got charged with something, but they found out that they were not reporting a lot of shit, and a lot of people were saying that. And I think this has happened in the past as well, where like for federal prisons, people just get, because the guards are lazy or whatever the fuck, they're not well funded, or like people are saying that like it's impossible to believe that a lot of cameras were not recording because this recorder was broken. But like yesterday, I read that 95% of housing units in Florida prisons don't have air conditioner. So I mean, like that doesn't even seem like the least believable thing, like, or the most unbelievable thing. Like,
yeah, I would say for me, it's kind of like it's fishy for sure, but I don't think we're ever going to get any concrete evidence of like, yeah, I was the person who was orchestrated to go and fucking kill Epstein.
Well, it's not even that.
Example.
Like, there's not even one. It feels like the lab leak theory for COVID. There's not even like one consistent, coherent story. Like, give me like what's like the strongest version of Epstein killed him or something bad happened. Give me like what's the strongest version of that story?
Isn't the strongest version kind of that the story kind of keeps changing, like over and over and over again?
The story is changing kind of now because the people here are fucking retarded. But like the Trump admin is retarded. But like if you read that, because I read this when it came out a few years ago, the Federal Bureau of Prisons report. If you read that report, nothing, from what I'm aware of, nothing has changed since that report came out.
That report is like 100% like still the same.
Yeah, because I said,
but the Trump admin
because
crazy,
I corrected myself because I was like, oh shit, okay, well something is majorly different because Bondi said, or it was Kash Patel said, that we have footage outside of his cell. And I said, okay, well that would be significantly different because in that Federal Bureau of Prisons report, they said that the only footage they had was across the room pointing over. But then when we actually watched the footage, that was the camera they had. So Patel and Bondi are literally just fucking retarded. Or lying, or both. It's almost certainly some combination of both. But as far as I'm aware, when I read that report a couple of years ago, or maybe 2 or 3 years ago, literally, oh no, I think it was last year, but literally nothing has changed from that report, nothing at all.
I haven't read that report or seen it, so I would like, if you can send it to me or someone in chat can just post it, I'll read it. But that actually does kind of clue me in a little bit more of like, okay, this makes sense. There's a report that hasn't changed at all, and it's just the Trump administration continually being fucking garbage.
Yeah, because if you follow what they've said, then the story has changed a lot, and there's like a minute missing of whatever footage, and they're just and the FBI is doing weird shit. Like, yeah, I don't know, it's retarded. Also, yeah, the fact that Epstein literally did try to kill himself like a couple weeks beforehand, and then he was on suicide watch, and then they took him off suicide watch, which they probably shouldn't have. That was stupid. But like these people had been disciplined for a lot of shit. Like they fucked up a lot. Like Epstein killed himself with things he wasn't even supposed to have. I don't believe he was supposed to even have those things in his cell. And other people were saying, like other inmates were complaining that like Epstein was kind of getting like special treatment.
Well, duh. Was the is like the Ghislaine
Maxwell?
Yeah, Ghislaine Maxwell.
Mm-hmm.
Is that interesting to you at all? That she was now moved from like a prison to like a lower security prison? Or no?
Yeah, but like the issue now is that like every single thing I said before about trusting a lot of these institutions, I have to completely 180 on it because Trump is literally rigging all of these institutions as hard as he can. Now, I would argue that there's way more evidence that Trump is doing it, but it requires people to be familiar with the leadership structures and the statements that leaders have actually said, and nobody knows any of this stuff. Not you necessarily, but just like nobody has any idea. But like the administration, this administration has taken unprecedented steps to destroy all of these supposedly independent federal executive agencies. So they believe in something. We used to talk about this as a meme, but like Trump actually believes in this. It's called the unitary executive theory. And what President Trump believes, he doesn't know the words for it, and what other people hyped him up on is the idea that the president of the United States controls directly every single branch in the executive branch of government.
Oh yeah, that's retarded.
Sure, but that's what Trump believes. So whereas before, Biden is sitting in the cuck chair while Merrick Garland directs her and other bulls to fuck both Biden and his son and anybody else he wants to, because Biden believes in separation between the attorney general and his roles and Biden himself. Donald Trump will just he's on TV saying, I directed Pam Bondi to do this. I told Pam Bondi to do that. Bondi's good. She listens to me all the time. And when he came in the first time, he tried to get rid of Jeff Sessions. He tried to get rid of Comey. He didn't like Mueller. He was trying to get rid of Mueller, right? So there's a huge difference. But yeah, so like everything that they're saying now it seems legitimately like they are trying to rig it as hard as they can. Like at this point, I would almost not believe anything Ghislaine Maxwell says, because Bondi and them literally are going in to try to get the sweetest deal they can from her in order to try to attack the Dems with it. And I think there's ample evidence to assess that. So
apparently she already has perjury on her record, which would call into question anything she's going to fucking tell them.
You would hope it would have to be independently corroborated some other way.
You would hope.
But my guess is going to be if she had anything, she would have already given this in the attempt to get some kind of plea deal or whatever else. It'd be my guess. But
do you think Trump will try for a third term?
I don't know. It's literally the only answer to this is going to be how old he feels. Because if he's running down and he's feeling old and he doesn't want to do it, then maybe he won't. But
if he isn't, you think he would?
If Trump was 10 years younger, he would. 1,000,000,000%, yeah.
How old is he now? He's like 76, 78?
Try again. I think isn't he like 82 or 83?
Trump age 79.
Fuck you. 79.
So he's going to be 81 when he's supposed to get out of office? Jesus fucking Christ.
I think 82, but yeah.
Obama's only 64.
He's a whippersnapper.
Get him back in. Okay, I'm going to read this report. That was pretty much all I had. Hope you're doing well, and I'm interested in whatever stream topic you're talking about.
Okay, I love you. Be careful, buddy.
Yep.
Fucking loser. I hate that fucking traitorous prick. Piece of shit. Motherfucker. Sorry, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, in America, when you see World War II end, you kind of turn the page of the history book. Now it's the 1950s with television, automobile.
Oh, fuck. I'm so sorry. There's one more thing. Your Monstera plant in the background, it is facing the wrong way. You've got to...
Well, actually, that's not a Monstera plant. That's actually a plastic. So, kill yourself.
I know it's fake, but you got to swap it around.
No, I like it like that.
In Levittown, but Europe was a freaking basket case, where millions of people, not just Jews, were refugees. In fact, some Nazi death camps, concentration camps, were repurposed by the Allies to hold refugees until they could figure out what the heck to do with them, how to get these people home, if they even had a home to go back to. And some of the Jews started to make their way to this new UN-mandated land in the hopes that they could build their own Jewish nation, so they would never again have to fear being murdered because of their... And some now, at the time, the Jews in Jerusalem and Bethlehem was sort of like international... yellow areas on how essentially the Palestinians had their own state. Kind of looked like this. This is many Palestinians guest worker status and money and worked them side by side. They would teach their kids, hey, we can all live together. But on October 7th, many of the terrorists who crossed on the kibbutz is down. You know, one refrain that I hear a lot is that the Israelis got what they deserve. They're occupiers. The Palestinians had every right. Back on October 7th, 2020, independence, and I talked about how essentially the Palestinians had their own state. Kind of looked like this. This is the original United Nations map for partitioning Palestine. The yellow areas are Palestinian, the blue areas are Israeli. Incidentally, the UN gave the Palestinians most of the farmland, even though Israel technically got a bigger portion, but it was mainly desert.
So the reason why people were ass painted here is because these mandatory states that were created after the fall of the Ottoman Empire, the idea was that all of the territory was going to be handed over and assumed by whatever coherent state or government emerged from the mandatory period, right? This was the only mandatory state that was now being split between two parties. So this framing here is not exactly correct. Like it was unique here, and they didn't feel like they got the entirety of the territory that they wanted.
Farmland, even though Israel technically got a bigger portion, but it was mainly desert. The map was adapted on November 29th, 1947, with Jerusalem and Bethlehem as sort of like internationally administered zones. The plan was reluctantly accepted by...
Was Bethlehem supposed to be internationally administered too? I thought it was just Jerusalem. I don't know.
Jewish leaders, but rejected by the Arab Higher Committee, who represented the Palestinians because they wanted more land since they had more people. Technically, they
really just didn't want to split it with Israel at all. That's the thing. It's not about the amount of land. It was the principle of they don't want any fucking other people there.
Wanted all of it. Now, at the time, the Jews in Europe had been liberated, but not totally freed. There was about 850,000 people living in displaced persons camps. And you know, in America, when you see World War II end, you kind of turn the page of the history book. And now it's the 1950s with television, automobiles, and Levittown. But Europe was a freaking basket case, where millions of people, not just Jews, were refugees. In fact, some Nazi death camps, concentration camps, were repurposed by the Allies to hold refugees until they could figure out what the heck to do with them, how to get these people home, if they even had a home to go back to. And some of the Jews started to make their way to this new UN-mandated land in the hopes that they could build their own Jewish nation so they would never again have to fear being murdered because of their ethnicity or their religion. When Israel declared independence in May of 1948, they were immediately attacked by a force of 7 nations. Egypt...
We're skipping over a lot of history there. There's a lot of stuff that happened before that. It's not like all the Jews just showed up right after the Holocaust. So we're missing a huge chunk of history there. But
Iraq, Syria, Jordan, Lebanon, Saudi Arabia, and Yemen, assisted by irregulars made up of Palestinian Arabs. Now, if you notice, Iraq Saudi Arabia and Yemen don't even share a border with Israel, but they hated the Jews so much, they sent expeditionary forces. Note that the Arabs weren't entirely noble in their goals. Jordan wanted the West Bank for themselves, and Egypt wanted to block Jordan from taking more territory, so they kind of yeeted themselves into the south. Yes, the Israelis kicked out some Palestinians from their land, but the Arabs were doing it as well, although at a lower rate.
That is one way to describe what they call the catastrophe of the Nakbas. I think it was 700 to 800,000 Arabs ended up fleeing / were expelled. You can argue over interpretations of that, but ultimately were displaced from their lands and weren't allowed back.
And at the time, the Israelis were fighting a genuine existential threat. This isn't Northern Ireland, where Protestants and Catholics were killing each other, but neither side was really at risk of total extermination. In Israel in 1948, if you were a Jew and you lost, you died. End of story.
Probably true.
Then a miracle happened. Israel won. Arab forces were militarily disunified. They had weak cooperation, strategy, logistics, and intelligence. And Israel's militias, despite early shortages, had better organization, they had better battlefield discipline, and they developed crucial arms programs that allowed them to fight back.
Well, they also smuggled in a ton of weapons from Czechoslovakia early on. It was probably the number one reason why they were able to turn it around. I think, right? The first big turnaround in I need to get my... when the first Civil War started in 47, there was a time when they almost lost, and then when they began winning from the Civil War, once the formal war was declared, they didn't have any more hiccups, right? I don't remember if it was in 47 or if it was early 48 where they turned it around.
Practical takeaway from all of this is that when you have someone running around shouting, "Free Palestine!" you have to wonder, did they even know there was a Palestinian homeland in 1948? But the Arab leaders weren't satisfied with that. They wanted all of Israel, and they started a war that
is insanely one-sided. That's a very, very, very one-sided telling of all the events leading up to that, but okay. That's kind of crazy to talk about that whole thing and not even say the word Nakba too, but...
They lost. So when you call Israelis occupiers, don't start wars you're not going to win. It really is that simple. Israel is definitely occupying land, but they took it in counterattacks during the War of Independence. They won it, fair and square. Over the past week, I've been called a lot of things. I've been called an Israeli shill. I've been called a Zionist. A Zionist is any Irish Protestant from Lisburn, I suppose, right? I've been asked, who's paying you? Implying that nobody would ever take Israel's side without a hefty salary. I have been called a lot of things the past couple of weeks, but I haven't been called a liar. Full disclosure, Newsmax paid me $2,000 for this trip, and 40% of it goes to taxes. So when I ask for $5 at RyanBeth.substack.com, I'm being serious. I really don't make a lot of money doing this, but, being...
Where's my Mossad money?
Called everything but a liar says something. And I think that's why I get so much hate, because people who say the most horrendous things about the Jews know deep down that I'm telling a truth that they don't like because it goes against a preferred narrative. Or they're just racist. Hamas can't win the truth, and they can't win on the battlefield, but they can win the propaganda war if they lie hard enough and they throw in a little casual anti-Semitism, which I guess is just good content. I'm not here for the good content, I'm here to tell you the truth. I didn't go to Israel with a pro-Israel agenda. I went to Israel with the goal of doing my damn job and telling the story of the Druze and the Israeli Air Force. And I think I did that. A few weeks before I went to Israel, the Bedouins and the Druze in Syria were fighting, and Syria either couldn't stop it, which is bad, or wouldn't stop it, which is problematic in its own way. And I didn't see Greta Thunberg get on a boat to protest the slaughter of the Druze by the Syrian Bedouin. The Druze are this ethnic and religious minority that kind of live in the north on the border between Syria and Israel, some in Syria, some in Israel. And the Druze who are in Israel, they know that their life is better in Israel than it is in Syria. In Israel, they serve in the army, they serve in the Knesset, they are regular, everyday citizens. Israel's actually a diverse country. About 20% of the population are either Arab Christians or Muslims, and everyone just kind of gets along. In fact, 5 members of the Knesset are Arab. The speaker of the Knesset, Amir Hanna, is a gay dude. And how many openly gay men serve in the Islamic Consultative Assembly in Iran or in the Parliament of Egypt? So if you're one of those people running around talking about queers for Palestine, you might want to close that loop, because in many Arab countries, you would be murdered for your sexuality. But in Israel, you're allowed to exist. You're allowed to thrive. Another thing I wanted to research was hunger in Gaza. After talking with the Israelis, I can say this. There is without a doubt malnutrition in Gaza. It's a war zone. People are not getting the calories they need. Is there a level of hunger that's similar to the current civil war in Sudan? Again, a place that Greta Thunberg doesn't seem to recognize. No, there's no famine like in Sudan. But in general, people in Gaza are not getting enough food or water. Some pockets are, some pockets aren't, and some people might go a day or two without food. And there's a couple of reasons for this. The first is that the security situation is not conducive to the distribution of aid. Many aid organizations refuse to operate in Gaza because it's too dangerous or because the Israelis have put too much restrictions on their operations. The second is that, at the start of the war, Hamas was stealing a lot of aid for itself. That doesn't appear to be the case anymore now with the method of delivery that has changed with the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, which has its own problems. But that issue is still ongoing, the theft of aid. The third issue comes from the Israeli and Egyptian side. The Egyptians share a border with Gaza in Rafah. And in any other conflict, civilians would have been allowed to leave the war zone. Ideally, Israel could have created refugee camps in the Negev desert, or Egypt could have created refugee camps in the Sinai, and just let all the civilians in. It just makes the job of distributing aid and medical care a lot easier. The problem is that Egypt is terrified of the Palestinians because they're associated with the Muslim Brotherhood terrorist organization, so they won't let anyone in beyond a few medical cases. And in Israel's case, the idea of opening the doors to refugees into your country, even to camps in the Negev desert in the middle of nowhere, it would get you laughed out of the room. Every time the Israelis have extended a hand in friendship, the Palestinians have tried to cut it off. The fourth problem is that...
Man, okay. We're very on one side of this.
Israel really did cut off aid in March of 2025 after the Hamas ceasefire collapsed in the hopes that it would force Hamas to release more hostages and people would rise up against Hamas. Needless to say, neither of those things happened. When the aid resumed in May of 2025, the slack in the supply chain was just gone. I would also say that I spoke with one woman at Kibbutz Nahal Oz who said that no aid should go into Gaza until the hostages are released. Now, the Geneva Conventions are pretty explicit how you can't do that, but considering a number of civilians were killed or taken hostage at that particular kibbutz, I understand her anger. Doesn't make it right, but I understand. You can't cut off aid. War is hard, and you have to obey the rules. Another thing that I talk about is the destruction that you see in Gaza. Many people assume that this destruction is due to Israeli bombs. That's only partially true. I visited the site of the Nova Music Festival where 378 partygoers and security guards were murdered. We were listening to the testimony of survivors, and there was an explosion.
Take me from here.
Oh my God, these have been going on constantly for 2 years. Get over it. We got used to them when we were there. We were like, make it louder, okay? Tell them to... Just kidding, sorry.
At first I thought it was outgoing artillery, and when I didn't hear the round explode, I asked about it, and they said that security forces had done a controlled detonation. There are between 350 and 450 miles of Hamas tunnels under Gaza, and that number is always getting revised as they find more. I want you to understand something here. That's larger than the New York subway system, like almost double the size.
What?
It was built over the course of 15 years at a cost of like $1 billion. And Israel has found maybe 10% of these tunnels. So whenever they find a tunnel, they blow it up. And oftentimes those tunnels are on top of houses, and the tunnel collapses, so the house collapses. I also interacted with a number of Israeli soldiers, and one interesting thing is that everybody declined to be photographed. So unfortunately, I don't have any pictures or video. But I was able to interview members of the Pere Elite Reserve Unit, and they gave me some insight into October 7th as well as the current fight on the ground. I asked these guys what their 3 primary concerns were when they step outside the wire of their patrol base, and their answers were IEDs, improvised explosive devices. Apparently these are everywhere. The second is snipers. Hamas snipers apparently work in teams of 3. Most Western snipers work in teams of 2. So with Hamas snipers, you have a sniper, you have a spotter, and you have a cameraman. Because, yeah, you shoot Israelis, but you also need the propaganda victory of putting it on Telegram. And the third concern they have is being captured.
For every sniper team, really? I've never heard of the sniper teams before. Not that they don't have them. Maybe they do, but...
They know if they're captured, they will be mistreated. And another thing people ask me is, how did Israel miss this massive attack? Their security forces are so good, they had to have known it was coming. They let it happen as an excuse for genocide. Well, the answer is surprisingly similar to why the U.S. failed to notice the September 11th terrorist attacks. We weren't looking for them. Speaking with soldiers, Israel's main concern back on October 6th, 2023, was LISCO, or large-scale combat operations with Egypt, or maybe fighting small squad-sized terrorists entering Israel. On September 10th, 2021, if you came to me and said, hey, a bunch of dudes are going to hijack a bunch of airlines...
If you got time, I don't know what the situation with aid is. It sounds like both sides cause problems, but no one ever gets into the details. What are they? I hear so many different details all the time. I think one issue is that it's legitimately just hard to distribute that much aid to people in terms of like getting the raw amount of supplies in. Another thing I've heard is that, sometimes people will steal it and resell it, or once people get it, they go to some place, or people that are stealing it and forcing people to resell it. I don't know if that's as much of a problem anymore. Other people said there was an issue with just getting the raw amount of aid in. Another issue is probably it hasn't in the past been as bad as people say it was, so people just don't have a good understanding of what's going on. Now it seems like it's getting worse. I don't know. There seems to be a huge issue getting like consistent information. Something about Israel is like a fucking mind warp, mind fuck, that everything, all the information that comes out of here is just the most fucking retarded shit in the universe. I don't know why.
Liners and fly them into buildings. I would have laughed you out of the room, right? The notion of that is absurd. Well,
I don't know what this idea of fighting Egypt is.
Imagine being some Israeli dude on a camera, and you go tell your boss that, hey, I think 2 brigades of Hamas are going to execute a coordinated attack into Israel. Right? Like, you want to risk your career on that one? So it just wasn't a scenario that people...
Is that even true? Is that so unlikely? Like, has Hezbollah, is that what instigated 2006? Was Hezbollah crossing the border? And the whole border riots involved them testing the walls as well. And then there had been tunnels where people had dug under and then popped up in the Israelis. Would that really be so? I don't think that would be so ridiculous. I think this is a thing they were actively concerned about.
Laughed you out of the room, right? The notion of that is absurd. Well, imagine being some Israeli dude on a camera, and you go tell your boss that, hey, I think 2 brigades of Hamas are going to execute a coordinated attack into Israel. Right? Like, You want to risk your career on that one? So it just wasn't a scenario that people envisioned was possible. Now, when I first announced I was coming to Israel with Newsmax, I was inundated with Israelis emailing and writing me asking me to meet up, and I was shocked at the amount of generosity. Unfortunately, this was a work trip. I had a schedule, I had to make content. In the same way you just can't leave work to meet up with a friend, I can't leave my producers and security guards and go to a local bar for a cigar and a whiskey. So I really couldn't get away, but I was blown away about the generosity of the people of Israel, how everyone wanted me to come to Shabbat dinner with them, wanted me to meet their sister, which is like, thanks guys, but you know, I'm 50, right?
Oh no, my
What?
God. Why would a movie? Why would that have anything to do with anything?
It has everything to do with it.
No. Listen.
But what's even the? What was I responding to? The dyslexic Israeli intelligence officer, when he realizes he's been sending reports of a massive hummus buildup in Gaza for the past few months. Is that dyslexic hummus versus Hamas? It doesn't even make sense. Idiot. Okay, what was going on here?
So I don't particularly know if there's anything you can read into it. Tomfoolery. Tom is fair. How you doing, bud?
Uh-oh, Tom.
Hey, yo, how's it going?
So, hang on.
Jeez.
Say something?
Why?
Hello. Yeah, last time you had me blasting, bro.
Yeah, hang on. Now try something.
Hello.
Okay.
Here, I'm.
All right,
this
man.
is-
How you doing, bro? I wanted to bring you on to chat about a few things. If that's cool.
Yeah, sure.
So first of all, I hope you're doing well.
Yep, doing well. How about you?
Doing well. Doing great. I wanted to first talk to you about the Adam and Sitch situation.
Oh no, God, not Adam and Sitch.
What did you think? What did you think of that?
Did they have a debate or something?
Bro, you should watch the whole fucking thing. Like, it's actually insane. Like, there's so many parts of it where I'm trying to, like, explain an idea to him. And it's really infuriating where I start off at the beginning and I'm trying to explain, like, the whole debate was about whether or not Trump was a fascist, and I'm trying to tell him Trump is, like fascism is this, like, concept that involves, like, a bunch of different ideas. And so then he's like, okay, so what are all these different ideas? And I'm like, okay, so, like, first he would have to be, like, a populist, like, ultra-nationalist. And he's like, wait, so you're saying anybody who's a populist is a fascist? So Bernie Sanders is a fascist? Like, no. And like, once we would finally, like, get through that, then eventually we would move on to the next thing and say, like, okay, so now, like, authoritarian, that's another thing. He's like, oh, so anytime, like, Joe Biden signs an executive order, he's an authoritarian? Like, no, dude, what the hell? Like, it's not, or and then that makes him a fascist. It was just the same thing over and over, and he had trouble, like, understanding the simplest parts of how concepts work.
And he kind of, like, ran away when, like, all he had to do was bite the bullet and say, so for the audience who's not aware, he basically took the position that anyone who's delusional can't be authoritarian or something like that, right?
Yes, he said that they couldn't be authoritarian if they're delusional, but then immediately backed off that.
And then, like, got mad when Sitch was trying to push him on, like, the logic of it. Like, I'm not going to relitigate all of World War II, man.
Yeah, so what he said is
what was going through your mind? Were you like, okay, I'm in the driver's seat now. Like, this is fucking embarrassing. What were you thinking?
Yeah, well, when he says, they can't be authoritarian if they're, if they think they're correct.
Yeah,
he says it's not authoritarian if they think they're correct. Yes, and I said,
What?
So you're saying that
Who's authoritarian and thinks they're wrong?
because Hitler actually thought the Jews were coming after him,
Which he did.
Then
Well, he thought,
yes,
and
but then
he did think,
wasn't authoritarian.
By the way, this is also an argument that I think for the genocide argument, people will say, well, if there's a mixed motive or something, then it can't be genocide if it's not solely just to destroy in whole or in part. But, like, Hitler viewed the extermination of the Jews as coextensive with his war aims. Like, the whole stab in the back theory, it's not just a matter of anti-Semitism.
Just to be clear, I'm pretty sure this is absolutely not true. In fact, my understanding is Jews were literally killed to the detriment of the war aims. That, like, Hitler would, like, divert supply lines and shit to be shipping people to concentration camps and to make sure that there was enough, like, ammunition van soldiers on deck to, like, murder as many Jews as possible. I don't believe that killing Jews was ever part of his war aims. This was, like, a broader project that he had a strong ideological commitment to.
They decided to kill Jews. They believed in the ideology that it was essential to the war aims to exterminate Jews from Europe after the that the final solution was on offer. So, but yeah, no, I totally agree with you that the mere statement or belief in oneself as being correct can't be enough to say you're not authoritarian. Like, Stalin thought that he was a good person. Hitler thought that he was good people. Like, they all think they're good people.
True.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that's what I said. He later, so after this, like, he mutes me, okay, and then he leaves the call. Mm-hmm. Like, after he gets in a fight with Sitch, he says,
The reason why I don't even like going over the Adam and Sitch stuff much, because that Adam guy I think he's legitimately some type of like cognitively deficient masochist. Like, he enjoys being retarded and he enjoys being perceived as being retarded. Like, he actually loves it. And it's just very weird and cringe, like, watching that guy bob and weave the most he's like profoundly stupid.
done with you.
I'm done.
And leaves the call. And I didn't know
baby.
because on your side, you've been on their show.
Yeah.
Like, you don't see their cameras when you're talking to them.
No, you
just see like logos. So when he just turns off his camera and leaves, I don't know that he's gone. So I'm now unmuted for the first time in like 5 minutes. And so I'm now able to talk. And so I just start replying to him, trying to like cool things down, trying to be like, okay, so my bad. I thought that was your position too, but we can move on to the next thing.
And he wasn't even there.
Like, yes, he wasn't even there. I had this massive list of like every action Trump had ever done that like was authoritarian and like had the definition of authoritarian was like legal actions that break your civil liberties or your rights. And like I had all of this stuff prepped, and it was to talk to Adam. Adam was the one who had this like visceral disagreement with this, and then he just left the call. And I think it was like an hour, maybe 45 minutes or an hour into the conversation, he's just gone. And so now I'm left just talking to Sitch, who didn't like have this like as big of a disagreement on whether or not Trump was a fascist. So then Adam goes on to Twitter and writes this big long post saying
Is he leaning into a character to make content? Adam? No, he's just brain broken. He's just like the ultimate like TDS contrarian. So like he perceives every criticism of Trump as basically being Trump derangement syndrome, and then so he wants to be on the opposite side of all of those to show how enlightened he is. And he's a guy who'll call himself like center left. I don't know, maybe he changed finally, but yeah, it's just ugh.
Just because
if somebody gives me a link to the Tom and Adam debate, I guarantee you that within like 2 minutes, I'll hear him say the most retarded thing you've ever heard, or at least for the past month. Link me the debate, and I'll go to a random timestamp.
He says not everybody's evil just because they do something wrong. And I'm like, bro, you're pivoting like the entire conversation. You were saying that they weren't authoritarian
not just
because
evil,
they did. Yes, just because
he's just very dumb.
they're not authoritarian.
He is very stupid. I just want to say, like,
yeah.
I'm sorry, hold on. What?
The other thing is, or the debate, the other thing for me is that for the last week, Gavin Newsom, and why am I giving him advice? You have to stop it with the Twitter thing. I don't know where his wife is. If I were his wife, I would say, "What? You are making a fool of yourself. Stop it. Do not let your staff tweet. And if you're doing it yourself, put the phone away and start over. And if he's got a big job as governor of California, but if he wants an even bigger job, he has to be a little bit more serious." The thing is,
Really?
Listen to me for a second, okay? Listen.
Okay. All right.
Open your
20. I'm going to pick 33. Good luck. Let's see what we got.
Fascistic government, or you can have a fascistic philosophy. I would say Trump has a fascist philosophy. He is a fascist. We cannot have a fascist government unless he gets enough loyalists in to do something, to do a bunch of things that are drastic. But yes, like we're talking about the philosophy, we're talking about his tendencies, we're talking about the characteristics of Donald Trump and the fact that these all align with what it is that we would call fascist.
And what is the look? Obviously,
oh my God, he's thinking, what is the most pedantic fucking point that I can find? I can feel it when people get into that state of mind. Sorry, hold on, I cut him off. My bad.
I'm completely guilty of speeding. Like speed laws are a guideline for me, right? You wouldn't call me a fascist because I am against the law.
This is what I mean when I say I did not watch this video beforehand. Wait, this was 9 months ago? Oh. Wait, I thought they just had a recent debate. Wait, how long ago was this? 10 hours ago. Was he referring here to this debate? Oh my God.
I'm constantly breaking the law, right?
Correct.
It would have to be some sort of characteristic.
Overriding someone's like personal freedoms, their rights, their things like that.
Right. Okay. So he would have to break the law in a way that actually harmed other people. That's where you're drawing the distinction.
I mean, even if it doesn't.
I wouldn't grant that. It's less about individual laws and it's more about law itself, right?
Doesn't have some sort of direct harm on somebody. I don't know that I would actually say that it doesn't. I guess in general, yes. Like because even challenging somebody
speed, right?
No, again, you're not like really like challenging other people's freedoms, and you're not like doing that in authoritative position. You're not in a like a.
That's someone.
You agree that there's a difference between someone who's delusional and someone who's authoritarian, right? This person could be the nicest person in the world. If they're delusional and acting on a delusion, they're not an authoritarian. They're doing the right thing. You literally agree with what he said.
No, hold on. Are you saying that someone who suffers from a delusion cannot be authoritarian? Because that's what you're saying.
I am not.
So give me an example of someone who is delusional and authoritarian by your definitions of these words.
I don't. That's not my argument.
Wait, what?
That's the question. Is that you're saying Donald Trump is not authoritarian because he's delusional.
Someone who is an authoritarian is acting imprudently. They know that they're acting imprudently. They know that they lost the election, and they don't give a fuck. They're like, fuck the system, fuck the rules. It doesn't matter.
This is what Trump did, by the way.
It's I am the law. I am the state.
That's what Trump.
That's an authoritarian.
Yeah, remember when he tweeted out a few months ago? What was it? As long as you're trying to save the country, you cannot break the law, or something like that, right?
You agree?
So I don't agree. No. Authoritarian is just someone who doesn't have respect for the laws, the Constitution, and was willing to sacrifice all those things in favor of what they want or believe.
Okay, then we're using completely different definitions of authoritarian.
Yeah, but so again, as I asked you, under your definition, you are saying that someone cannot be delusional and authoritarian.
Someone can be delusional and authoritarian, obviously.
Okay,
obviously.
So give me an example. So what does that look like?
Saddam Hussein mistakenly
Saddam Hussein wasn't. Or wait, what?
Executes 50 of the wrong people because he thinks they're conspiring against him because he's delusional.
Why is that authoritarian?
Because he is the law. He can do whatever he wants.
No, but so like what part of that? So the authoritarian part is the executing the people without trial? Is that the authoritarian part? I'm trying to ask you. I'm trying to figure out this distinction here.
I'm done with this, okay?
He's so fucking retarded.
I'm literally done with you.
Okay.
He's so fucking stupid. Sorry,
I think he's very
that's what I was like, bro, you're getting into like 8th grade fucking philosophy, saying that like, oh, well, just because not everybody's malicious when you do things right. Yeah, no, duh. Like everybody does things.
Yeah, but you're arguing whether it's authoritarian, not whether or not they're malicious.
Yes.
Or whether,
Yes, and so I list like, Mao and like, Mussolini, Hitler, like all of them had motivations that in their head were good and were just, and they were trying to do the right thing. And then he unfolled me. And
did he block you?
he didn't block me, I don't think, but I sent him like another message, and I was like, hey man, sorry that went that way. Like, I was excited to get to talk to you. This is the first time I had like a conversation with them. And
wait, why was I linked this? Why are they? I don't even know why they're talking about this conversation.
And I was like, hopefully we can have like another conversation in the future. And then he just never replied to me, and I was pissed.
Oh God, is Pisco debating Ryan on the immunity thing?
And so then everybody started.
Oh, Tom linked it himself.
Started coming out with the clip of him leaving, saying, "I'm done with you, Sitch." And they're like, "Tom Fuller, you just ended the Sitch and Adam show. Like it's over now." And so when they came back, he did came back, and Sitch says like, and Adam's just sitting there pouting the whole time Sitch is talking, and Sitch is just like, Adam thought that Tom was trying to frame him as a Nazi, and that's why he was saying that it was bad faith.
But the thing is, like, that's their go-to. When they blocked me, or when he blocked me, he was like, you're lying about us. You're lying about us. Couldn't identify a single lie. And so what they come back down is like, you're structurally dishonest. You're just like, and in some ways they get all of the worst traits of the woke people they are supposed to be crucifying. So on the one hand, they're ultimate cultural and ethical relativists in every respect, right? Like, oh, Hitler, if he thought what he was doing is good. So like they go into this kind of postmodernism almost, and also like have to invent these new theories of deceit and being bad faith to basically account for the fact that they have no clear-cut evidence of you being bad.
Okay, I agree with all this. Oh my God. I can die happy. I know it'll never happen. But if the person who runs this account is like, I was inspired by people being unhinged online about Trump. This is funny though. Jesus. Oh shit, Republicans are fighting back. Texas Republicans have locked a Democratic rep, Nicole Collier, inside the State House chamber and refused to allow her to leave. They're requiring Democrats to sign permission slips and have a police escort in order to leave the chamber so they can't flee again. Oh, what? I'll just sit here. I don't know. I guess I'll wait till Wednesday. A Texas lawmaker found herself effectively stuck in her seat Monday, planted on the House floor after refusing to sign a political permission slip, a GOP-mandated form requiring Department of Public Safety escorts for Democrats who broke quorum over redistricting. State Rep Nicole Collier, is that it, right? was sitting among her colleagues' empty chairs after being prevented from leaving the house due to her refusal to allow law enforcement officers to accompany her out of the chamber. In my heart, I don't feel compelled to sign it. She told NBC News' Ryan Chandler, I'll just sit here. I don't know. I guess I'll wait till Wednesday. Jesus. Wait, what is this? Why is visual art like this when music kind of just isn't? The main reason rich people in SV don't buy art. What does SV mean? Oh, Silicon Valley? Don't buy art is that it does actually take some expertise to do it well. And since the kind of people who get rich in Silicon Valley hate to do things badly and don't have time to learn about art now, they do nothing. The other alternative, if you don't have time to understand art, is to hire an art consultant to buy it for you. Rich people in New York City and LA do this, but these art consultants are, for the most part, so palpably bogus that few Silicon Valley people could endure them. Since so many people are saying, why not just buy what you like? I'll answer that. Art can be phony, just like people can. Do you know you've had to learn how to avoid phony people? Why do you think you don't need to learn how to avoid phony art? What happens if you get fooled by phony art? Your life becomes phony to the extent the art affects it, and a painting hanging on the wall can have big effects on what it feels like to be in a room. It's like a visual loudspeaker. If only art had some purpose beyond social signaling. Sigh. Should I even waste my time replying to this willful misrepresentation? I'll give it one last try. I care a lot about art. I spent several years studying painting at one point. I despise the idea of buying art to impress people, and it's precisely because the art world is. What does buying art well mean? It seems a bit incongruent in this context. It means buying good art instead of being tricked into buying meretricious and or fashionable art. The best stuff from Tchaikovsky, say, just sounds good, even to lay people. And then when you study it as a serious music theory student, it turns out it's good for roughly the reasons lay people think it's good. That is not even remotely close to true, but okay. There are things to learn for sure. A less trained listener might be unaware of how much of John Williams' best ideas are closely derived from people like Tchaikovsky or Holst, but even there, it's someone widely acknowledged to be extraordinarily talented in his own right. Is this guy trying to sell something? Like, what's the point of this? I mean, I get what he's saying. Like, why does it seem like art is so much harder to understand or get into than music, I guess? I feel like there's two things going on. I can probably think of more if I were to sit here and think about it more. I think one thing is that imagine if instead of buying music, imagine you were just buying like lines of melodies and harmonies and chords, and then trying to put that together in a way that makes sense. It'd probably be really difficult for an average person to do that. You have to develop like an understanding and a taste for it. I feel like assembling like a coherent like room with art that is meaningful and makes sense for the room and everything else, unless you're talking about just buying one painting and randomly hanging it somewhere. Like there's probably more, you have to requires more skill to like put together a coherently fleshed out room decoratively versus just buying music that everybody says is good. Is probably one part of it. A second part of it is I would probably say we don't really develop, unless you go to school to study like art or painting or whatever, I don't think we develop a vocabulary at all for art decoration stuffs. So like sculptures or paintings, like we all develop vocabularies to some extent for music because we're listening to it everywhere. Like radio musicians, bands, like these people are popular. They sell albums. We have shit that we download. We pay for it online. Like nobody's paying for art pieces online. Nobody's paying for images, except for porn. Like we don't really. In fact, actually, ironically enough, I feel like the best thing that maybe men in general, or a lot of guys maybe, could put together would be a room of like sports memorabilia. Because I feel like that's going to be something that they would probably understand more, right? So like a autographed football from a particular guy, a jersey from a particular basketball player next to a poster or something from a particular game, right? Because this is a vocabulary that's more intuitively understood. Nobody understands like painting or art, because who the fuck knows anything about paintings or sculptures or any of that ever? You just don't. I don't think in your day-to-day life, I don't think you're ever encountering this stuff and developing any kind of like fluid taste or understanding about it, I think. That would be my guess. It's probably mainly that one, more that than the first one. What would you say about like everyone has their own taste for music? Could you say the same for visual art too? I think taste is something you develop over time. And taste is not just a subjective, arbitrary, random thing. Like I think that means something more. Destiny, the route of just get the music people say is good is just as applicable to art if we're talking about a person who's just aesthetically retarded for all senses. Yeah, but you already have a solution for like get the music people say is good. You would just turn on like a Spotify playlist or a radio station or whatever the kids are listening to these days of like some like randomly generated track, like, and then boom, you're done, right? For art, what's the equivalent there for art? I just don't think we engage. We just don't engage with it at all. Somebody said, Destiny, no. Everything involves visual art in movies, video games, a lot of shit. No. Movies are not... movies aren't even photography. Filmography or film is not even the same as photography, let alone paintings, let alone things that you could hang up in a room. Like, how do you frame it? How do you light it? What's appropriate next to what? Like, I just think it's... And also, I don't even know if people... I think people in general would think that it would probably be tacky if you had random stills from like Interstellar hanging up in your living room, you know? We actually, with the one exception being maybe movie posters, but that is a thing that actually people enjoyed hanging up, I guess. Or they used to. I don't know how much people do that anymore. Can you give an example of visual art pieces you like and try to explain why you like it so much? Nope. I don't do it like art, like paintings or whatever. I can't do that at all. I don't have any negative taste or understanding of any of that shit. Jesus. What is this? I don't care. Is there a painting you particularly like? I would just say all of them. Wrong. Film is visuals first. The entire mise en scene, color theory, metaphor is all built into a single frame in film. Really? I'm going to find the wackiest. This one. Wait. You would hang this. You would hang a picture of this. Oh, this would be an amazing still. It shows, even though the camera is focused on him, his eyes are closed to what the father wants for his family, showing how society is neglecting his ideas and leaving them behind. This, would you do this still? Shut the fuck up. Photography and film are different. Yes, obviously there's going to be more crossover than, say, film in like oil paints or something, but what is this? Beautiful, thank you. Film contains photography, but not the other way around. I can't tell. You're trolling me. Stop. Okay. Destiny, good cinematography is actually a lot like painting with color schemes conveying emotional lines. Sure, I'm just saying they're different. It's a different skill set. Just because things work differently in film versus photography. Obviously, there's crossover. You're capturing things on film. One is moving, one's not. But these are two different things. Also, arguably, I'm trying to think. Like, arguably, I'm trying to think if it's different. Like, you can theoretically, you can appreciate a lot of, or you can like film without even understanding anything about the cinematography. I feel like half of people today watch film with their fucking cell phone out anyway. So I'm trying to think if you can say the same for music. You can, but there's not a way to distill music down into like a singular frame, like you can with film. Right? Like, music is definitely a thing experienced through time, and you can't take a slice of it, like you can, like with a still or something, if you wanted to. You can sample one cycle and turn it into a synth? Sure. That's true, and it's the same for music, but when we get into analysis, film, music, and art are all just as snooty. That's true, I'm not denying that, but I think that it's easy to have quote-unquote good music because you just play what everyone else is playing. And we all develop like a vocabulary for music. You know what sounds good or doesn't sound good to a contemporary ear, just in terms of like what does the plebeian enjoy. But when it comes to art, I just don't think that's a skill. When it comes to like photography, or when it comes to like paintings, or when it comes to sculptures, or when it comes to other pieces, like that's just not a vocabulary or an aesthetic that most people develop a taste in. You just don't have any practice in it. Unless you're literally an art student or you have a job that's directly connected to something like that, most people just never will. So when it comes time to designing or like buying art for a room, we're like, where the fuck would you even start? Like, I imagine it would be much more challenging than figuring out like what playlist to put on for a party. "99% of people can recognize a good sculpture versus a shitty one." No, I don't know. I don't know if that's even true. And like, what makes a particular thing good or bad could also be, there could be a variety of different things. Like, there's fuck, what's the name of the guy that did the? I don't think it was even impressionism for painting. What's the guy who painted with the retarded fucking shapes? And everybody's like, oh, this is actually really good, but it looks like shit. What am I thinking of? He's got like a picture. There's like a man standing, and the man looks like this, and it's like, oh, it's like cubism or some stupid shit. Is it Picasso? Hold on. Jesus, booba. Well, wait, hold on. Is this actually Booba? Does that count as Booba? Like if I showed you this painting, like if I had this hanging on my wall, like is this great art, or is this some shit that your kid drew? I wouldn't be able to tell the difference. I would have no fucking idea, and I don't think most people would have no fucking idea. Like it would just look like a whatever thing, you know? If I had an original Pollock, like, is this some shit that you're supposed to be captivated by? Or is just this some bullshit? What are you trying to say about it, though? The masses also don't like death grips. What am I? I'm not making any strong statement. I'm just trying to interpret why this guy is having this feeling. Or he's asking a question. Why is visual art like this when music just kind of is? Or when music just kind of isn't like this? The best stuff from Tchaikovsky, say, just sounds good, even to lay people. And this guy here is pointing out that people in Silicon Valley don't buy art because they don't have any. I don't know if he doesn't say it directly, but what he's really getting at is people in Silicon Valley don't buy art because they don't have any taste in art. They haven't developed any taste for it. But I think it's because I don't think there's a modern industry for like stills, for art, single frame art things that are being consumed by people anymore. So you never have the opportunity to develop any kind of aesthetic taste in here at all. If you're an ordinary person, if you're not studying art, you're never like widespread consuming paintings or photographs or anything like that. The closest you're just going to get is like watching movies or furry porn. Both music and film are unique in that they are temporal mediums. The listener needs to set aside time to experience music and film, but paintings and photography can be consumed at a glance. Well, I don't know if that matters as much because people can develop vocabulary through like clothing, say, right? And that's a thing that you just kind of like look at, but it's because, or like the way like cars look, I guess, or like there are things that we associate with where people can think like, oh, I like the way that thing looks. I don't like the way that looks. I like the Mustang, but I don't like a Prius, right? What is art? Art is when I smack yo mama in a loving way. Okay. All right. Wooten, go live. I'm bored. I got nothing else today. Better tell Dan to hurry the fuck up. Cue, stop, breakfast, shot, pool, pocket, prompt, parking, chance, Wi-Fi, digital, opening, wrist, nod, break, and signal. Prompt him, nod to him, cue him, signal him. Boom, easy. Free Wi-Fi, free parking, free opening. Fuck. Pool, the game or a pool, pocket, stop, parking, chance, Wi-Fi, digital opening, wrist, breakfast, break, and shot. Like a shot, a chance, an opening, pocket. Stop. Fuck. This is gonna be off by 1. Fuck! God damn it! There's an, okay, like an opportunity. A chance, an opening. Oh, my big break. Okay. Watches. Oh, easy. Sorry, that's easy. Wristwatch, digital watch, pocket watch, stopwatch. And then these are things at a hotel: free pool, breakfast, Wi-Fi, and parking. Fucking easy. All right. I'm hosting Clipped and Shipped. Good luck. Go talk to them. I love you guys. Be careful. We're going to capture channel, pop channel, hop channel, pop channel, pop channel, pop channel.